this computer. Thanks, everybody, for making it. Jordan Zeller with the East Central Regional Development Commission. We were contacted a couple weeks back by Darren Fleener with the U.S. Department of Commerce, Federal EDA, our local EDR rep for the state of Minnesota. The federal EDA has got some money for disaster declarations. And in our part of the world, our 5 counties, only 2 of those counties, I believe, are eligible, that being Pine County and Mille Lacs County. Sent out invitations to those folks and more info, kind of the briefing paper on that with a link to those maps. So we are lucky to have Mr. Fleener today to tell us a little bit more about this grant program dealing with federal disaster declaration here a couple of years back, and maybe some uses of that and some ideas. Again, we are recording. We'll tape this and send this out to everybody who might have missed it. But with that, I will maybe we just do a quick round of introductions so everybody knows who's on the call. Again, I'm Jordan, doing economic development. On my screen is Mr. Bob Voss.
Hey, everybody. Bob Voss, Executive Director, East Central Regional Development Commission.
And next on the Brady Bunch screen below him is Joe.
Yeah, Joe Mulford, President of Pine Technical Community College.
And Leslie is right below.
Hi, Leslie Sauter, Pine County's Economic Development Coordinator.
And Michelle. And Michelle's on.
You're on mute, Michelle. Yeah, that's okay.
Michelle Thomas with the East Central Regional Development Commission.
And below is Darren.
Yeah, good afternoon, all of you present and not present. First question is, who's this character Joe Mulford who is this guy? Joe, great to see you. Yeah, really happy to take some time today. Jordan, thank you for the introduction. My name is Darren Fleener. I'm the Economic Development Representative. I cover the states of Minnesota and Indiana on behalf of the U.S. Department of Commerce, Economic Development Administration. As Jordan had mentioned, we are in the process of allocating $1.4 billion across the United States based on federally declared disasters. That's a mouthful. Based on FY 23 and 24 incidents that had happened. So I'm just going to run through a couple of things. I'm going to share my screen here. I want to first show you. First, I'm going to show you the map of the state of Minnesota. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yep.
Great. So this is the map that Jordan was referring to. We get these from FEMA. You can find them at fema.gov/disaster. Your disaster number is 4722. It was declared on 9/7/23. And you can see Pine and Mille Lacs counties are a part of that. So this is the first disaster in Minnesota that had happened in 23. And then the disaster that happened in 24 is this map right here. You can see that East Central is not in this map, but we've got a bunch of Arrowhead. And this is when the bottom third of the state flooded last year, except for Olmsted County. I don't know. I guess they just had enough elevation. But this is from the flooding last year and is also a part of it. So I think in the state of Minnesota, every regional development commission that exists has at least one county. And you can see here in Region 5, Cass County, that's the only one that they have. But suffice to say, a lot of the state was covered with that. I want to just run through a PowerPoint with you. And once we do that, we can go and have some questions about any potential projects you might have. I don't think we're going to need the whole 90 minutes. But I wanted to make sure that if there were some questions, we had time to take those. So here's the disaster. The overview that I have prepared. There's a series of webinars, and Jordan had sent out a fact sheet with the invitation to this meeting. And in that fact sheet is a link to the EDA website for this disaster appropriation in this program. The program is open now. We are accepting applications currently. We have a few in already. I think it's important that if you're interested in something like this, that we mentioned that EDA will start the grant rate at 60% and it will go up to 80% depending on other forms of distress eligibility. So we have our mission here, of course. We like to start with that, letting people know what we're here to do, and that's to promote innovation, competitiveness, and preparing regions across the country for growth in the worldwide economy. This disaster supplemental, $1.45 billion. It's available to all communities within the disaster declaration maps, which I showed you just a few minutes ago. And this is from hurricanes, wildfires, storms, tornadoes, and other natural disasters in 23 and 24. The first thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be preparing to have our first webinar, and that's going to be next week, I believe. If you go to our website and sign up for our newsletter, eda.gov, you'll be notified of these 5 webinars that we're going to be doing related to the disaster appropriation and the application process. So we want to really stress that the NOFO is not about just rebuilding from the disaster. There's a couple different pathways that you can go down, and we'll be talking about those. But what we're really looking for is being able to transform that economy with an emphasis on improving the outcomes of your project, and that will provide the resilience to other natural disasters. So access to the economic challenges faced by communities. We want to improve economic trajectories, and we want that to put you in a better place pre-disaster economic conditions. This will help buffer you and your community from future economic and natural disaster shocks. And you see that we're looking for business creation and growth, job creation, and certainly, as it always has been and will remain a priority for EDA, workforce training and workforce development. We're going to be funding construction and non-construction projects, and these will be related to post-disaster priorities. And we're always looking for that partnership with private industry. We're all familiar with the term beneficiaries. And then finally, we want to leverage and align EDA with other public and private investments at the same time. So when we talk about EDA investment and economic recovery, we talk about kind of different buckets of ways we want to see that things happen. One is going to be to provide technical analysis and project feasibility. We're going to be looking to support construction and workforce training projects. We're looking specifically for programming to train workers for higher wage opportunities. As always, we want to upskill anybody. We're going to focus on funding, supporting, and strengthening of critical public infrastructure, facilitate projects that grow new and existing industry sectors, and invest in projects that meet unique local needs, but will drive economic results. And the examples, we have a revolving loan funds that provide gap financing. So some things that differentiate this NOFO from other ones, we've established 3 pathways for people to be looking at. You will be required to complete new narratives to explain the project's intended impact. And then we'll be providing resources to help potential applicants through webinars, through frequently asked questions, and all the other resources that are on our website at eda.gov. A few things about the NOFO that we want to make sure you're aware of. The project must be located in and be primarily serving the communities that are in the map. So they have to be and primarily serve either in Mille Lacs or Pine County. Here's what the map looks like. So here's your competition for $1.4 billion. We typically have allocations for disasters that are given to each region across the states for EDA. This time, the decision was made to keep the money centrally in Washington, D.C., and people will compete for it as a national bucket of money. So I think it's got some good sides in that, you know, we're not going to be limited by $50 or $60 million for Federal Region 5. But at the same time, you know, the money's available until it's gone, and now you're looking at your competition. So it's important, I think, if you're interested, that we accelerate the timeline for your application as soon as we can. I talked about the 3 funding pathways. Non-construction grants, and they're going to range from 250,000 to 500,000. Again, we're accepting applications now. One interesting thing about the readiness pot is that we are allowing for pre-development expenses for projects, which we have never really done before. We're going to be looking at non-construction grants in the implementation bucket or pathway, 100,000 to 5 million in construction grants. Here's another flexible thing that's happening here, from $2 to $20 million. So any of you who've worked with EDA before, you know, opportunity to hit a $20 million grant at a potential 80% grant rate could be really kind of a transformative thing for a number of communities. And then finally, industry transformation. And this is a portfolio of projects, 3 to 5 construction or non-construction. And these projects will range from $20 to $50 million. And this does have a deadline of March 3rd of 26. So we're going to be coming up on that in several months. If you have additional questions about this, check out the fact sheet that Jordan sent around. Give me a call, give Jordan or Bob a call, or check out our website at eda.gov. But suffice to say, this is going to be, I think, a real opportunity for especially areas that might not otherwise be eligible to come to EDA to actually get there and participate in these projects and this funding. So non-construction projects, these are in some examples, some ideas Jordan mentioned that I might have some of those, and I do right here. We're going to be looking at strategic planning for recovery resilience, organizational capacity building for organizations that serve these counties, and for pre-development costs, which I mentioned earlier, things like architectural engineering, planning, and permit applications and things like that. I have a community that I'm working on. I just want to maybe provide an example. They're looking at a larger project that involves 3 counties, 26 communities, and 2 watersheds. It's going to involve a lot of hydrology related to flooding. It's one river that runs through all of those counties and communities. And they're looking at a pretty big project. So they're going to be looking at pre-development costs to do a bunch of engineering, architectural, hydrology, and environmental work. And if they have time, they're going to come back for an implementation project. But if they don't, or they're not able to, or it takes more time than that, they certainly will have all of those pre-development costs already covered, and they can continue to build their capital stack to tackle their project from any other sources of funding. So it's something that they get to walk away with either way. But that's an example of a pre-development kind of project. Implementation, these would be our typical EDA projects. We can look at infrastructures, we can look at workforce, incubators, technical assistance, RLFs. I think it's important when you talk about implementation that there's kind of 2 ways you can look at this. One is going to be direct disaster or pre-disaster mitigation projects. So every time it rains hard, our streets flood and our wastewater treatment plant floods over. So our EDA project is going to be to put a 10-foot wall around our wastewater treatment plant. Then it doesn't flood anymore. So pre-disaster or pre-disaster mitigation projects, we certainly can do those. The second thing, a way to look at it would be every time it floods, our wastewater treatment plant gets taken over, and it's broken right now. And so this is disaster mitigation or a street disaster project. And we would be able to go in and help fix the plant and probably put that wall around it. And then the third kind of implementation project is one that seeks to expand and diversify the economy of the region through things like workforce, entrepreneurship, industrial parks, any things that you typically see EDA doing that would help secure and expand the local economy to better withstand future economic shocks, not necessarily natural disaster shocks, although they go hand in hand. And then we already talked about industry transformation. And this is going to be to provide an opportunity for transformative growth through scaled private sector investment. And that's really what industry transformation is about, is massive private sector investment. So how do you make your application competitive? You demonstrate the need, and you're able to articulate that, the objective of the project, how well it's going to address that need, and then is this really a feasible project? But then most importantly, based on the strategy, which is what's the need, then the impact section is how impactful will the project be to address what we talked about in the needs of the communities. So just a few things on preparing your application. Here's some questions about understanding the community's needs. Have we made sure it's eligible? What are we going to need to restore economic activity while we've had these natural disasters or things that we have lost? And then how can you reduce the community's vulnerability to disaster impacts and end up with a stronger economic situation after the project has happened? And then what funds are needed for your proposed project, and how does it align with this funding opportunity that we've put out there? We want to make sure that you are engaging with local and regional partners. Certainly, we have to keep in mind where the map is and where we can and can't go. But we want to make sure that you're taking a look at the region's SEDS. Does your project align with other activities within the region, and how well does it fit in with what the region has as priorities for economic growth or diversification related to the funding opportunity in front of us? The last thing I'd mention on here, which we all need, is we got to make sure that we have our match. Who doesn't know that, right? Got to have your match.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that you're looking at the economic impact of the project, and this is, we call ROI. Do we have beneficiaries? Do we have demand for things like workforce? What does that look like related to how well the investment priorities and the evaluation criteria in the NOFO are being addressed by your specific project? And I think that looking at those evaluation criteria will help you to understand how you're going to impact the region or the area that you're going to be serving based on the project. So when it's time for you to prepare for your application, and if you've ever worked with me before, you know that I've always requested and asked that you read the entire NOFO. It's about a cup of coffee. It doesn't take too long. Take a look at the frequently asked questions on the website, eda.gov/disasters. And then make sure that you're able to participate and review the series of disaster webinars. And then I guess most importantly, be sure to engage myself, your EDR economic development representative. And you don't need to use this. Obviously, you know who I am. And then I think that's it. Yeah. So that's kind of an overview of the program itself, kind of the money that's available, and the opportunity for you as applicants. Sorry, I'm just trying to get back to the screen. Am I with you still? Let's see here. There we go. Gives you an opportunity to have some resources available to you, and certainly I'm available to answer any questions that you have. So quick overview of the program, and I guess I'll open it up for anybody that has maybe any immediate questions. If not, if you're just watching the recording of this, my contact information is in the email that Jordan had sent out. If not, you can find my contact information at eda.gov, or you can email me at dfleener@eda.gov, or my phone number is 312-405-8521. Reach out anytime. So let's take some time to answer any questions if anybody has any at this time.
Hey, Darren, it's Joe Mulford. Quick question for you. It's good to have you with us again today. We're heavy on construction projects right now with that bonding deal that we did with the building expansion, which is scheduled to open soon, with the work and project we did with federal EDA a few years ago and the remodel. But one of the things that we're looking at related to this is potential readiness funding for some training programs. And as I was reading through it, that is eligible. So as an example, to pay for some of the development my thought on it is we've got an experience set with doing short-term targeted training programs, and specific in this case, it would be more towards the construction trades. So when I think about readiness, that's what I'm thinking about. Or is readiness in the term being used here specifically for readiness for a bigger construction application?
Well, it can be both. Readiness can be used to prepare for an implementation project, but we also understand that there may not be time from the time you apply for your readiness project to the time you close it. Will there be money left for implementation? That's the part that we don't exactly know. And so while you could do that, there's no guarantee that you would have time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then what was the other part of your question?
Yeah, it was specific around around training dollars. So we're looking to develop a series of short-term but really technical industry targeted training programs. We've had an experience actually with Pine County where they were able to use some federal funding they had a few years ago, and we took dislocated workers, and then a lot of it was really geared towards just industry, high growth, high demand industry preparation. But
so it's for developing the curriculum, or is it for paying the tuition of the student? I just what are you going to spend the money on? If I gave you a check,
it could be both. Where we do need curriculum development. We might have some equipment, not a huge amount in equipment, and then to support some of the early pilots, as we start the training up to cover the costs of the tuition essentially for students.
Yeah. Okay. So the third thing, the tuition, that's not eligible. So individuals are not eligible to receive the funding.
Okay.
So we couldn't do that. We can certainly talk about the curriculum development piece, but certainly the equipment would be, probably the most competitive. But yeah, I mean, if we could tie the development of the curriculum to the kind of training that would be prioritized in our investment priorities and in our evaluation criteria, then that's probably something we could look at also.
Okay.
It's difficult as you saw in the NOFO, understanding the return on investment, the ROI.
Yeah.
That gets a little bit more difficult when you're that far away from the end product, right? Because after the curriculum's developed, then you got to get it set up, and you got to figure out the demand, and then you have to actually do the training. And it's difficult, I think, to be able to say what the ROI is it going to train 100 people or 1,000 people? I mean, it just gets more and more difficult the farther away you get from the result of the project. So, and that was mentioned in the little piece I just went through, and being able to articulate what that is will be, obviously that's going to be something you'd have to develop.
Okay.
But, from a Pine Tech perspective, I would think also, and I don't know where you're at on this, obviously, but if we're able to, look at maybe like an equipment only project, if you want to replace a bunch of your tired equipment. I know we've done some of that in the past, and we certainly can look at that with this kind of funding. Workforce, as you heard mentioned a number of times in here, entrepreneurship and workforce development, facilities, construction, and equipment is going to be extremely competitive.
And I've got one more question, but if there's others that want to jump in, I don't want to keep over. And Darren, just for my clarification too, or your understanding is, so we think about the cost, like it could be referred to as tuition if it was given to the individual. But as an example, if we just covered the cost, meaning there was no tuition to run the pilots, let's say of these training programs we're trying to develop, is that seen the same, or is that's eligible?
No, that would fall into the same category. I mean, us paying for it and then you giving it away there's just really no. It's just a different pathway to the same end.
Okay.
But I mean, Joe, I got to give it to you for creative thinking, man. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well,
Not
one of
bad at
those,
all. But remind me, I'm not playing poker with you either. So just forget
yeah.
that.
Well, we're just we had a really great experience moving people, and again, from different either underemployed, low wage jobs to more competitive occupations, from a wage perspective. Um, Really fast, short term, stackable, so they fit into some of our longer term programs. So it could have been around auto or nursing assistant, 120-hour welding type programs. The federal, with the bill that was signed last Friday, actually the federal Pell Grant is now creating more flexibility around. There's a workforce Pell option, and so we'll be able to use it for these non-traditional program methods. It could be commercial driver's license, things where you don't need a degree, you need a credential, but they're
You're
really
right.
transformational occupations for people or entrepreneurial opportunities. We're trying to sew all that together, and we've got residency opportunities now where we can bring people in for 3 weeks, do some intensive training and get them out. So we've got a vision around some things we're trying to work on, but that's where I saw this project is maybe touching part of it, if not, maybe not all of it, but.
Yeah. And you've seen EDA do that before. During the CARES Act, we had the Good Jobs Challenge, and that's where we were able to pay for things that were, would remove barriers, things like tuition or childcare or transportation. That's not this, but do recognize the model that you're talking about. And yeah, it's something that we have funded in the past, but it won't be a part of this NOFO.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Jordan, anything from your house? You have anything you want to talk about, or anything I need clarifying?
Could we just kind of walk through a little bit of what the process looks like? So let's just say we got a good idea. Someone's interested. I'm assuming step one, give Bob Voss or myself a call, or Michelle at the ECRDC. We talked a little bit about it. We get a call set up with you, Mr. Fleener, and with the potential applicant. We go through the project, just kind of get your temperature on it, what you think. And I'm assuming, like in the past, Darren, if it's not quite a perfect fit, you may have some ideas on ways to massage it a little bit and make it work.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's essentially the right pathway to go. Once we get into the project itself, and I would say also, maybe I differentiate this a little bit more than others would, but even if you just have an idea, and not necessarily a project like scope of work in mind, but you have a thought or an idea on what you might want to do, I think we want to hear about those, just to make sure that we're not leaving anything on the table. We haven't hit all of ECRDC, but the two counties that we have, I want to make sure that we have ample opportunity to make any kind of investment that we can. I just think it's important that we don't neglect any thought or idea, that we take an opportunity to just talk those over. And certainly, at the end of the day, it would be great to be able to provide some and make some investment in the region. So this is a great opportunity, again, especially for those areas who might not otherwise be eligible. This doesn't come along very often, and I want to make sure that the word gets spread. So for the folks on the call now, and for others that are going to be listening to this in the future, please feel free to share this with, the cities, the counties, nonprofits, institutions of higher education. Share it at the Chamber of Commerce, put it into your newsletters. So everyone really has an opportunity to evaluate if this is going to be a good fit for them. And, I would say that the opportunity to start at 60 and climb into an 80% grant rate is something that is very, very rare. And when you're talking about a 10, 15, $20 million construction project, that kind of a grant rate, that's, again, an opportunity that doesn't get seen very often. So want to make sure that people have an opportunity for that.
Other questions from anyone for Mr. Fleener?
The PowerPoint is in the recording, but is that going to be available? I guess
Yes.
that's okay.
Yeah, no, great question,
Yeah.
Bob. And it's a
Yeah.
good time for a reminder to take that fact sheet that Jordan had sent around. And there's a link to the EDA website where all of these resources will be available to anybody that wants to look at them.
Awesome.
And kind of figure out what we're looking for and what we might not be looking for. And I would also say I'm not always a huge fan of frequently asked questions, but the ones that we have up on our site right now actually have a lot of good project ideas in them. So reading through them, can we do this? Can we do that? Is this something we want? Something we don't want? It's surprising at the breadth of what we're taking on with this notice of funding opportunity. We have a lot of flexibility both in what we're doing, and also the amount of money that's available. So I think that that's great. And the idea of having the ability to do things like pre-development costs and capacity building, not always something that is necessarily available, like putting rear ends in seats for 2 or 3 years to do economic development, hiring contractual services to accomplish things like business retention and expansion programs or entrepreneurship training or things like that might not otherwise be available. We can talk about all of those things.
Awesome. Leslie, haven't heard anything from you. Any questions or ideas or thoughts? She must have had to step away for a moment. Okay. Well, I think everybody at least here knows each other well, and feel free to reach out directly to Mr. Fleener or give Bob or I a call. And we appreciate everybody's time. Darren, anything else you want to hit on?
No, thanks. I just appreciate everyone taking a little bit of time to listen to what we have to offer here, and hopefully we'll be able to have some robust engagement, and look forward to hopefully some applications coming out of the 2 counties. It'd be fantastic. Love to see it.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Fleener. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Darren.
Yep,
All right, you bet. Have a great rest of your week, everyone.
Yep, see ya.
Bye, everybody.
Yep, bye-bye.